This video is going to be a film study look at how the Ravens were able to successfully attack the Bengals' version of Stick Blitz Zero. They had at least two versions of it, perhaps a third, whereby they would make it look like it wasn't going to be Stick Blitz Zero and then, in fact, bring extra pressure from a nickel defender or even a free safety in one instance. The Ravens have struggled with this concept for years. Why did teams use it? Well, they used it to get the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands. Fans of other teams would say, well, they used it because Lamar doesn't understand how to attack coverages. That's a BS narrative, number one. Number two, it also works against other quarterbacks. If you notice, they don't necessarily use it against statue-esque quarterbacks who can't move. If you go look at most iterations of Stick Blitz Zero in the last 2, 3, 4 years, it's against athletic quarterbacks that teams may have difficulty containing in a third down or high leverage situation. You want to force that guy to get rid of the ball, number one. Number two, it's a somewhat anomalous coverage technique. In fact, the technique is generally quite bad. The Bengals changed it up a little bit on Sunday. They actually were getting into a backpedal. I would say playing more of a man concept than the way that they and the Dolphins had done it in 2021. As an aside, everyone remembers that game against the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football where they used Stick Blitz Zero so many times. As well they should. Actually, I think 2 or 3 weeks prior, when Cincinnati came to Baltimore and beat us badly on a Sunday afternoon in Week 7, that was the first time I had seen Stick Blitz Zero unveiled against Lamar and the Ravens, and it was by Lou Anarumo. And on Sunday, at least, the Ravens had answers for it, at least 3 that we'll try to go through here. First of all, Lamar was willing to throw the ball to the outside guys a little longer, number one. Number two, we were able to use tight ends, or in this case, Pat Ricard, as a part of the pass pro element. Now, the Bengals are actually dropping out here, but they're showing heavy pressure. So that's a part of the equation. That's a part of the formula, trying to navigate that and deal with it from a pass pro standpoint and from a quarterback standpoint, processing what's happening. Are all of these guys going to blitz that are lined up here? Geno Stone, in fact, is lined up as a potential blitzer off the edge, rolls to center field. We end up getting Bateman on the little deep out cut where the corner is getting off. I would say it basically ends up being a version of cover 3. So credit the Bengals for trying to be multiple with this. And in this case, Lamar gets time and understands what's happening, drops it in there to Bateman for 18 yards down the left sideline on a 2nd and 10 in the second quarter. Same play, end zone angle, just so you can see the way that it looks for Lamar, well, the way that it looks for the defense staring at Lamar at least. They flip the inside linebackers. It certainly looks like you're going to get man here or potentially used as a blitzer. Other second-level defenders in the case of inside linebackers, and then Geno Stone off screen to our right, roll into center field. Lamar looking at Bateman the whole time. Perfectly thrown ball underneath the coverage. Bateman diving catch. We had 3 of those on Sunday. This is my favorite way to attack it. I think it's damn near foolproof if these guys in here are not reading it and dropping out to wall off crossers. So this is a 3rd and 5. I think this is our second touchdown, but I could be wrong. Actually, might be this is our second touchdown. My apologies. Puts us up 14-7. I was a little worried Bateman didn't get in for a second. But notice where he's lined up. He's lined up at the bottom side of the screen, the backside X receiver. It's 12 personnel to the top side. Bunch. They've overloaded the boundary. Everybody's blitzing. You do have guys dropping out, but no one is walling off the crossers. It's essentially mesh with likely emanating from the bunch side on a little drag, and then Bateman from the bottom side running a little drag. There is no defense for this if the coverage that they're going to play is man or is not man. So let me explain. The way the Dolphins did this was normally look and attack and drive wherever Lamar's helmet looked first. So if after the snap Lamar looked here, then guys would be looking to drive on routes. There was no backpedal at all. I'm talking about how the Dolphins utilize the technique or lack thereof. If you're going to play an actual version of man, well, then you've got to follow. CTB's got to follow Bateman. I think they generally were playing a version of man, and we messed them up by going trips or bunch. You can see how these guys are matching up here. CTB is caught way behind, not even attempting to play man. Bateman with an easy touchdown for 16 yards. We really went after Cam Taylor-Britt, and I think he's got a whole lot more potential than he showed on Sunday. It's a cool answer. I think that if these guys are going to attack so much and then peel out of there, they've got to wall off crossers. Neither Logan Wilson nor Sam Hubbard did it. Those are both intelligent football players. If they had been coached to wall off crossers, my suspicion is they would have done so, that you have a chink in the armor in this scheme, at least as it was deployed on Sunday. Another iteration of it, we've moved all the way to the fourth quarter. There's going to be multiple catches to the outside against Stick Blitz Zero by Zay Flowers, and then, in fact, Tylan Wallace a little bit later on. This is 2nd and 12. We're down 10. Fourth quarter, about 7:50, 7:45 left. Beautiful throw. Lamar and Zay Flowers have hooked up on these types of routes multiple times in the past year plus. Basically, deep sideline out on the right-hand side, and Zay Flowers just gets his feet in bounds. So those guys have obviously practiced a lot. It's very smooth. Lamar has brought Andrews in to help here with the protection because he notices the overload. But, of course, that actually brings another player into the box anyway. That's the numbers. They're just basically trying to overwhelm us with numbers. Again, it's a 2nd and 12. Justice Hill with a really nice job on the edge defender up here. Just gets a piece of him. Lamar actually had more time against this version of Stick Blitz Zero than he did in many other times where teams have used it in the past 2 or 3 years. Same play from the end zone angle, and you'll see what happens when he brings Andrews in. Von Bell walks down. Try to pay attention to the helmets when you get the end zone angle of the Bengals defenders. Looking at Lamar and then keying on the receiver. Look at what Bateman has done. Bateman brought his route basically a drag stop, and that's open because he must have seen pressure here and chose to stop, make himself available for Lamar. I think it looks like the Ravens have practiced against Stick Split Zero and many different iterations of it with at least 3 concepts that beat it. Here you got a deep out by Flowers. You got a deep out by Bateman. It didn't end up being Stick Split Zero. Pre-snap, that's what it looked like. Ended up being cover 3. And then you got the backside drag that Bateman scored on a touchdown from 16 yards out. Still same possession. It's actually 2 plays later. 2nd and 10. A little over 7 minutes left in the game. Left side this time. I think I will give the all-22 in a moment. It's against Davis, one of their backup corners that was in there since Dax Hill was out. But look how many players are lined up to blitz for Cincinnati. Got 8 guys lined up here to potentially rush. We know that if you're reading it, normally you'll drop out if someone steps to you. If you're not aware of what I'm talking about, forgive me if you've listened to this explanation for 2 or 3 years. So let's say we step this way. Linderbaum steps here. Macari steps here. Stanley steps here. That wouldn't make any sense because of all these extra rushers here. But just for a moment, let's say that's what we do. Since Linderbaum is stepping here, this defensive tackle would drop out because it's mission accomplished for him. He is away from the overload. We can't block everyone over there if Tyler Linderbaum, the center, steps here. Could be accomplished the same way to the other side. If Daniel Falele steps to Logan Wilson, then Logan Wilson would maybe peel out of there because it's just -1. They're just trading 1 for 1, and they're going to have an overload from one side or the other. Basically, the idea is you get a free rusher from the edge, cause the guard, center guard to occupy themselves with no one or perhaps one potential blitzer. Lamar barely gets this thing off. The throw kind of dips. If my explanation for that concept or the read nature of it isn't good enough, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I've explained it so many times. At this point, it's a read blitz. Oftentimes, I do think the Bengals were predetermining who was blitzing and who was dropping out at times. But you can see Pratt and then 92 dropping out, kind of like I described. It's a beautiful throw from Lamar, 12-yard gain on a 2nd and 10, really important. And then this one is perhaps the most important of all. I did a video yesterday afternoon on Tylan Wallace and his impact being a little bit underrated. He's down here to the bottom side, going to run a little in cut. This nickel defender is going to blitz. It doesn't look like Sticks Blitz Zero. You have normal alignment for the Bengals. Well, somewhat normal. It's just a mug look. They got 2 safeties lined up at depth pre-snap. Again, this is a 3rd and 10. We're down 10 with 6.5 minutes left. 2 safeties lined up. Looks like you're going to get man here, man here, man here. No one lined up over the tight end, kind of a giveaway. And so what the Bengals do is they drop out. I think this is predetermined, by the way. They drop out one of the inside linebackers, Wilson, and they blitz the nickel. They are not going to allow themselves in this instance to get beat by a scramble from Lamar. I think Lou Anarumo learned his lesson last year on 3 separate occasions on third down. He did not bring pressure, talking about 2023, on third downs, late in the game, second half. 3 separate times, once in week 2 and twice in week 11. He didn't bring pressure, ended up only with a 3-man rush. Lamar was able to scramble, escape, and get the first down or get close in one case. And I think on Sunday, Lou Anarumo decided, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to force him to throw the football. It's a little unsound here, if you ask me. Logan Wilson's dropping out. It's not Logan Wilson. My apologies. I think that might be Pratt. Could be wrong. Dropping out of here, looking directly where Tylan Wallace would be. This safety is picking up Andrews, clears through. Beautiful job by Lamar of getting the ball off right before he is hit. Hendrickson also gets a roughing the passer or unsportsmanlike conduct after the play, pushes the ball down really close. Of course, we get a touchdown to make it 38-35. Get another stop, tie the game on Tucker's unbelievable 56-yard field goal. At least unbelievable for the way that he's been kicking this year on longer field goals. Here's an example of it, quote, failing. We've got the ball, 2:30 left, 2nd and 1. The blitz pressure actually gets there for Lamar. It's incomplete, attempting to get it to Flowers. I think, again, on a deep out, I would say this is a real version of Stick Blitz Zero pre-snap, but these guys dropping out of here are predetermined. Notice they didn't come downhill. Pratt didn't, at least. 92 dropped out of there. It's the 3rd time he dropped out. They're just trying to get in the window of Lamar throwing over the middle. We're not trying to throw over the middle anymore. The routes that we beat it with were deep outs to Zay Flowers from trips, mirrored version of what I'm getting ready to show you. Tylan Wallace across the field, underneath of or behind, kind of like that post or climb, over or climb concept by Andrews. And then the other one, the big one to Bateman, was the backside drag from a tight alignment. I do think there's a little bit of an element here that makes it somewhat predictable which concept we're going to based upon the formation. But I think you got 3 answers there that the Ravens put out on film and showed that they can use. Will teams adjust? Of course. Will teams use Stick Blitz Zero less? I don't think teams are going to use it 8 or 10 times in a game anyway. I think teams are going to use it at a moment and time of their choosing to try to force Lamar to get rid of the football if and when there are situations he's scrambled in third down dynamic and been able to convert a first down without completing a pass. Cincinnati might use it the next time we face them. At this point, it looks like we have 3 answers, at least one of which is going to be really difficult for them to cover. That backside drag from a tight alignment by Bateman, I don't mean super tight, I mean 7-8 yards wider than the tackle, is going to be really difficult for them to cover if Lamar will wait and throw the football at the last second. There's absolutely going to be nobody in the flats over there if they don't drop out into a zone. That's the game the Bengals are trying to play, force Lamar into making a mistake, get the ball out of his hands quick, such that it removes his ability as a runner, which of course is spectacular. I think it's a great strategy by defenses to use at times. I think it looks like we are on to them, and we have some surefire ways to attack it if and when we see it again. Appreciate you guys' time, man. I know it's been a frustrating 2 or 3 years to see this defense used. I think this was the best answer the Ravens have been able to come up with. I still would like to see us throw the ball downfield a little bit more, but the deep out to Flowers, those DBs know that they have no help at all behind them. So when there is a vertical stem, whether it's by Flowers or Bateman, those guys have got to get off and get depth. And the deep out concept is there repeatedly, and Monken and those guys took advantage of it on Sunday. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at how I think Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson were able to finally solve Stick Blitz Zero, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.